'Twas the night before Christmas. December 24th, 2002.
Ready?
I get to open one present before Christmas morning.
Get set. Go!
Oh.
I knew it. Oh, I see something!
New PJs!
When I first began to work on this project, my idea was to tell a story through my family archives. I planned to focus on the role that gender dynamics and norms played within my quote-unquote traditional family, with a closer focus on my mother being the one who was most often left out of the frame, being under the impression that she was the one who was usually behind the camera.
Hey Bobby, what kind of cake is that?
After going through over 25 hours of footage, it turned out that the idea I had cooked up in my head about my mother being the primary cameraman was entirely incorrect. Although not true in regards to many other aspects within my parents' marriage, this was a role that appeared to almost be 50-50.
Yeah? Bobby caught her first fish. It's a small little walleye, a little pickerel. Bobby's usual position when she wants to get out of her chair. Hey? Yeah. Instead of crying, she sits there and she kicks her feet and looks at you. Patiently for a half hour at a time.
And in those rare but special moments, sometimes I would find footage with both my parents present in the frame at one time. On the other hand, there would often be one taking videos and the other would be on camera duty. And I saw them switch between these two roles pretty frequently throughout our home videos. So I decided to shift my narrative around a bit and try something new. After spending a week playing with alternative narratives and ideas, I decided to tell a story about the process of being the actual archivist and putting this project together. Because let me tell you, it was not easy. When my mother had informed me that she had all of our VHS home videos transferred to a hard drive a couple years back, and she was willing to send it to me, I was absolutely thrilled. I have always been kind of fascinated by our home videos. Growing up, I even tried to make it a weekly family thing, where we would watch a single VHS tape each Sunday.
Put your arms back and forth. Put your arms down on the snow. Okay, move them up. Move your arms up. Nah.
But due to the inconvenience of setting up the VHS player, the unpredictability of what we were about to watch, and the organizing of 6 different people's schedules, it didn't last long. I'm not entirely sure why I wanted to watch them as a family so badly. Looking back, I don't think it was a coincidence that I wanted to watch them around the same time that I was in my prime bratty phase, where I wasn't getting along with everyone so great.
That's mine, Papa.
Sure, okay, sure.
I felt this way, particularly with my dad. Sometimes I felt that his frustration with me translated to a lack of love. Maybe I hoped that looking back on happier times with him would reignite his love for me. But what I know now, that I wish I knew then, was that his love for me was always there to begin with.
Daddy for your hug first.
Good girl.
But this sparks an interesting question of what these home videos have to offer. Is it a true representation of who my family is and was? Or does it only show us the good parts? The parts we want to look back on to remind ourselves how much we love one another. Now, before we get into that, I feel it's important to get back to discussing the actual process of piecing together this project. When I received the hard drive in the mail, I was prepared to just plug it into a computer, toss all the footage into an editing software, and begin to pick it apart. Safe to say, I realized pretty quickly that this was not the case, and it was not going to be that easy. After I plugged it in the hard drive, I discovered the files were all in AVI format, and therefore unable to be viewed or used in any accessible editing software. After a week of working with Ryan Randall in hopes of solving my tech issues, I finally found a solution. So from there, I began the process of converting batch files of home videos. A week and a half and over 5,000 files later, I completed the conversion process and began playing a not-so-fun game of the process of elimination. Not to mention, there were several files that were formatted completely differently than the other ones I was already having issues with, and I would therefore only be able to convert them one file at a time. Due to time constraints, I was unable to embark on that journey. But who was I to decide what was important enough to make the cut and what wasn't? What had I done to have the power of authority over this footage? After all, I was rarely, if not ever, the one behind the camera throughout these videos. What about the implications of including footage that some of my family members may have wanted to stay in the family? Maybe they were private videos, not to be seen by anyone outside our family. Or maybe even the videos portrayed them in a poor manner.
Where's Chelsea's Bobby? And you have to turn off the camera.
Hi. Hi. Hi, Luke.
Through the process of sifting through the footage, I realized it was ultimately my call. That it would be me who decides what is chosen and left out, and which sides of my family and family members are shown in my work. But what a strange idea it is, that the little girl in the video, who was illiterate and barely capable of getting food into her own mouth half the time in these clips, would one day hold the power over all that these home videos had to offer. Where my parents once had control in regards to what was being filmed, I ended up being the one in control of what was being seen. Taking that one step further, I can't help but wonder what would have happened to this footage on the hard drive had I not been a film student and therefore capable of working out the kinks and mechanics of poorly formatted videos and time-consuming conversions. Surely I know no one else in my family would have had the motivation or skills to do so. Would they have just sat there, being passed down generations until they were completely useless altogether? All while new family archives were being created and old ones were being forgotten? Maybe not, and thankfully not in my own family's case. But there is no doubt in my mind that this has happened to others many times before. Memories that someone once put so much time and effort into documenting, lost and forgotten. And what about those folders that I ultimately decided to leave behind? The ones that required I convert one by one? What if those folders contained some of my parents' fondest memories as a family in them, and my ignorance and impatience caused for them to forever be forgotten? Now, surely one day I will find time to convert them, but these are questions that must be asked. They are questions that force me to think about the role of power and the power of the archivist him or herself. It helped me recognize that power can come in many shapes and forms, depending on how you look at it. That the past is made up of multiple perspectives and viewpoints, where at a base level, no single one is more important than the other. It is when you begin to put the pieces together in hopes of telling a story that the power is really shown. Through all of this, and with Christmas coming up, I was inspired to make a short video, separate from this one, containing more footage and less of my blabbering, as a gift to my family. The way the video is headed so far, it appears it will be upwards of an hour long. This stark difference in length has a lot to do with feelings of obligation to include as much as possible for my family's sake. And although it's inevitable, I'd hate for them to miss out on anything. Now, after giving my family the video that I am currently making for them, the likeliness of my family members having any motivation to go through all the footage again in a similar way I have is extremely low. This means that the story they keep with them will forever be the one that I told. And assuming they are pleased with the video I have created, they will simply settle for it, either out of laziness or satisfaction, or maybe even both. In my case, I feel proud and honored to be the storyteller of my family. This project took me through an emotional journey, and I uncovered things about my upbringing that I was previously unaware of. It forced me to ask myself uncomfortable and challenging questions, while also questioning my own personal moral principles. Most importantly, it inspired me to propose a question to others. Who is your storyteller, and how is your story going to be told?
Choo-choo train's coming, Luke.